On my birthday, my family gave me what seemed like a thoughtful gift. But when I opened it, I found a note telling me I had to move out of my own house. I just smiled. A few months later, I returned the favor. At their wedding, I read it aloud. I'm Ronan, 32 years old, and what I'm about to tell you feels like something out of a low-budget family drama. Nothing explosive. Nothing wild. Just slow, weird, and quietly messed up. The kind of story that only starts to feel wrong when it's too late to stop it. It really begins around my birthday. But to explain that properly, I need to go back a little. Because the people involved. You kinda need to understand them to get the full picture. So I own a house. Not some mansion. Just a 2-bedroom place in a quiet suburb, about 40 minutes outside the city. I bought it 3 years ago after saving forever. I work in IT. Not the flashy kind, more the slow and steady corporate type where you become the guy who fixes everything but no one notices. It's stable. Still. And honestly, I like it that way. I like calm. My family? Not so much. My mom, Denise, calls herself old school. What that actually means is she needs to be in control of everything and doesn't handle no very well. Growing up, she ran our house on guilt and drama. Disagreeing with her didn't just make you wrong. It made you ungrateful, rude, or selfish. She keeps tabs on every little thing she's ever done for you, like she's saving up receipts for later. Then there's my younger sister, Fallon. She's 28 now. We've always been opposites. As kids, she needed more help, more attention, more space. I didn't mind. I was naturally more independent. But that never changed. Fallon kept needing and I kept giving. Money for her first car, a place to stay after a breakup, clothes for job interviews. Sometimes she didn't even ask. It was just assumed I'd come through. And to be honest, for a while I didn't mind. He's my sister. Fallon's boyfriend Milo has been around for about a year. He's got this laid-back charm, always seems like he's selling something even when he's not. People love him, even my family, which is impressive. My mom adores him. Looking back, maybe that should have been my first red flag. Anyway, that's the crew. Now let's talk about the birthday. Mine's in late March. I wasn't planning anything big. A few friends wanted to grab dinner, but I was really looking forward to a quiet weekend. Maybe some takeout, finally crack open that book that's been gathering dust for 3 months. Not think about work, not fix anyone else's mess. Then a week before my birthday, my mom called me. I was at work, so I let it go to voicemail. The message was short, just her saying she wanted to do something special for my birthday and that I should call her back to go over the details. I already knew what that meant. She didn't want to ask what I was doing, she wanted to tell me what we were doing. Still, I called her back that evening. He sounded extra cheerful. Said she missed having the whole family together and thought it'd be nice to do a little dinner. Just her, Fallon, Milo, and Aunt Celeste, my dad's sister, who's always just kind of there. She said it made the most sense to have it at my house since it was in the middle of everyone. I laughed and said, "Of course. It's your birthday, we want to do things your way." That should have been the second red flag. Denise never wants to do anything my way. But I went along with it. Arguing over a small dinner didn't seem worth the effort. If they wanted to bring pizza and cake and call it a celebration, fine. At least I wouldn't have to make plans. And honestly, a small part of me hoped, just maybe, it'd feel normal for once. When the day came, I spent most of the morning cleaning up the house. I put out some folding chairs in case we ran out of seats and made sure the guest bathroom had clean towels. Around 5 p.m., everyone showed up, arms full of food and drinks, laughing like it had been years since they'd seen each other. Even though I knew Fallon had just been at Mom's the night before. And for about an hour it was actually nice. There was a pepperoni pizza that vanished in 10 minutes, a veggie one that nobody touched but everyone praised, and a homemade cake Fallon claimed she baked. But I'd bet money it came from that bakery near her place. We laughed, played a couple rounds of that card game Fallon forces on every gathering, and it felt familiar. Tense, sure, but familiar. Like how things used to be when I was 10 and life was simple. Then right after we'd finished eating and I was about to clear the plates, my mom stood up and clapped her hands. "All right," she said with a grin, "time for the gift." I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a book. Maybe something from one of those home goods stores Fallon always wanders around when she's bored. But Fallon walked over with a big box, carefully wrapped, and placed it in front of me like it held the secrets of the universe. Milo pulled out his phone and started recording. That should have tipped me off. But it didn't, not yet. So there I am, sitting at the table, half-eaten cake, dirty plates still stacked, and this box in front of me. It's wrapped better than anything Fallon's ever given me. Thick paper, gold lines, and a bow that looked like it had been tied twice to sit perfectly centered. Fallon stood behind my chair with her hands clasped like she was waiting for a standing ovation. Milo's still filming, grinning. My mom had taken a seat across from me, watching with this weird look. Part pride, part something I couldn't place. And Celeste? She wasn't smiling. Now that I thought about it, she hadn't really said much all night. She just sat there, sipping her drink, eyes scanning everywhere except me. I started peeling the paper off slowly. Something about the moment felt off. It's hard to explain, but it felt like everything around me had gone still, like they were all waiting. Under the wrapping was just a plain cardboard box, sealed with tape. I looked up, searching their faces. Fallon nodded like a kid on Christmas morning. "Go ahead," she said. "You're gonna love it. It's really thoughtful." So I opened it. Inside was a blue plastic folder. The kind you'd use in middle school to organize homework. It looked used, like someone had handled it a lot. I pulled it out, opened it, expecting maybe old family photos or childhood drawings they'd dug up for nostalgia's sake. Instead, it was a thick stack of papers. Typed, stapled, organized like a report. I looked at the top page. The title read something like Proposed Transition Plan and New Living Arrangement Agreement. I didn't get it. Not at first. I flipped to the second page. Bullet points, dates, a numbered list. Then my eyes caught one sentence in the middle of the third paragraph. Effective April 30th, current occupant Ronan is expected to vacate the premises to allow for the establishment of shared family residency under the care and management of Denise and Fallon. I read it again. Twice. Then just sat there staring at the page. For a second I genuinely thought I'd misread it. Maybe it was some awkward joke. Part of a game night skit gone wrong. Or maybe Fallon was back on one of her weird creative writing kicks. But Milo was still filming. And Fallon? He was smiling. Denise was the first to speak, her tone light, like she was walking me through a recipe. "I know it's a lot to take in," she said, "but we wanted to do this face to face so you wouldn't feel blindsided later." I looked up at her slowly. What is this?" Fallon stepped closer, tapped a spot on the folder. "We've been thinking about this for a while," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "It just makes sense. Mom's rent went up, my lease is ending. Your house has the space. You're always saying how peaceful it is here. And you don't even use the guest room," Denise added. "Plus, you're barely home during the day, you work so much. We wouldn't even be in the way." It felt like I was listening to strangers describe a house they found online, forgetting it already belonged to someone. Me? "This is my house," I said finally. I wasn't yelling. Wasn't even mad yet. Just baffled. "Are you seriously asking me to leave my own home?" No, Fallon said quickly. "Not asking. We're just suggesting a transition. You could crash with a friend for a while, or maybe that coworker you used to play chess with." I hadn't played chess with anyone since college. Denise reached across the table, resting her hand on the folder. "It's not permanent. We really believe this would be good for everyone. We even checked out some rentals for you. So the process wouldn't feel overwhelming. That info's in the back." She smiled. A real proud smile. Like they'd pulled off something brilliant. I turned towards Celeste. She hadn't moved all night. But when I met her eyes, she quickly looked away. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. Not really to anyone, just out loud. Fallon shrugged. "A few months. We had to line up the timing. And I didn't want it to mess with your work deadlines, obviously." Obviously. I didn't say another word. Didn't argue. Didn't flip the table or yell. I just sat there, folder still open in my lap, while they kept talking logistics like I wasn't even there. Denise started listing what furniture they wanted to bring. Her sewing machine, Fallon's bookshelves, Milo's gaming rig. They were laughing now. Fallon leaned into Milo and said something about how open concept layouts make everything easier. That's when I smiled. Just a small one. Not bitter. Not angry. Just quiet. I closed the folder, stood up slowly and said, "Thanks for the gift. I'll think about it." No one even heard me. Fallon had moved on to describing how she wanted to repaint the hallway. She'd already picked a color, sage green. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door behind me and sat down on the edge of the bed. And in that silence something shifted inside me, not in some big cinematic way. Just, quietly. It hit me, they weren't going to stop. Not unless someone made them. I wasn't mad. Not yet. But I was more focused than I'd felt in a long time. And what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that their timing couldn't have been worse. Or maybe better depending on how you look at it. Because Fallon was getting married in a few months. And I had just decided I'd be attending. Without a gift. I was still sitting on the edge of my bed holding that blue folder like it might crack in half if I squeezed any harder. And I wasn't hurt, not in the way I might have been a few years ago. That part surprised me. What I felt wasn't sadness. Or even betrayal. It was a quiet, steady click. Like a lock turning. They'd really done it. They'd handed me they had planned to kick me out of my own home, on my birthday no less, and wrapped it up like it was some kind of thoughtful surprise. And the worst part? They weren't even embarrassed. They'd celebrated it. Planned it all the way down to the hallway paint color. Fallon had stood there practically bouncing, going on about how the kitchen got such good morning light and how perfect it would be for her smoothies. Denise was calm, composed even. Like she'd just sealed a business deal she'd been negotiating for years. I stayed upstairs for a long time, listening to the muffled sound of their voices drifting up through the floor. They weren't even talking about me anymore. Just chatting about which runner rug would look best in the entryway. Eventually I heard the front door open and close a few times. Some laughter. Milo I think whistling off-key. Then one car engine. Then another. And finally quiet. I waited just to be sure, then came downstairs. The box was still sitting on the table, the folder tucked back inside. And next to it was a card I hadn't noticed before. One of those glossy ones with foil letters. Happy birthday. Inside, Fallon had written a note in her overly neat round handwriting. We love you and we know this is the right next step for all of us. Don't overthink it. Just trust us. Love, Fallon and Mom. I stared at the card for a long time. Then I set it down, walked into the kitchen, made myself some tea and sat back at the table in silence. And that's when the idea started forming. Not fully. Just the beginning of a thread. Fallon's wedding was 4 months away. A garden ceremony at this fancy little historic venue 2 towns over. I hadn't been looped into much of the planning. Got the save the date in a group chat and a vague mention of tux fittings in May. But here's what I did know. That wedding mattered to her. A lot. Fallon has always been obsessed with appearances. Her life has to look just a little shinier, a little more perfect than everyone else's. Every milestone is a performance. When she graduated from college, she rented a white dress and made us take professional photos. Caps, gowns, the whole thing. Even though the ceremony had been on Zoom and half the family skipped it. When she and Milo started dating, she posted a picture with the caption, "The beginning of forever, after one coffee date." So yeah, this wedding. This wasn't just a celebration. It was her show. Her spotlight. Which meant she couldn't afford for anything to go wrong. The next day I started taking notes. I created a private folder on my laptop and named it Home Plans. Just in case anyone ever saw it open. Inside I made subfolders. One labeled Documents, where I scanned every page of the transition plan they'd given me. Another called Witness Statements, where I started typing out everything I could remember from that night. Plus little things from before. Comments Fallon had made, texts I'd saved, even a voice memo from Milo where he joked about finally getting a place with enough outlets for all his gear. Over the next few weeks I stayed quiet. I didn't bring up the folder. Didn't mention the house. When my mom called, I answered like everything was normal. When Fallon texted me a photo of a chandelier she wanted to hang in my living room, I just replied, "Looks nice." They thought I was adjusting. What I was actually doing was watching. And gathering. Fallon's wedding planner, Ivy, turned out to be someone I'd known in high school. We hadn't talked in years, but we used to trade math homework answers at lunch. I messaged her on social media. Told her I was helping with the wedding and wanted to catch up to go over a few things. She was happy to meet up. We had coffee 2 days later. Ivy was bubbly and easy to talk to. No clue about anything going on with the house. As far as Ivy knew, everything was going smoothly. Ceremony at 3 p.m., reception by 5, buffet dinner and dancing under string lights. She said Fallon had been a little high-strung about the seating chart, but otherwise it was all on track. I didn't pry. I just asked small, casual questions, nodded along and took mental notes. Fallon and Milo were mostly covering the wedding with some help from my mom. The venue had strict rules about sound. Everything had to be wrapped by 10 p.m. sharp. Ivy also casually mentioned a surprise slideshow they were planning for the guests. A cute little trip down memory lane. Fallon had asked friends and family to send in photos and short clips. That's when it clicked. That's how this would play out. The trap wouldn't be dramatic. No yelling, no chaos. It would be clean, quiet, even boring. The kind of revenge no one could really call out because technically no one broke the rules. And the best part? They wouldn't even realize it until it was already happening. Until every single guest had their eyes on the screen. And not on Fallon. For the next few months I leaned into the role they expected me to play. The quiet older brother, the easygoing son, the guy who didn't make waves. I nodded politely when Fallon updated me on the move-in timeline. I smiled when Mom showed me swatches for curtains. I even helped Milo carry in a bookshelf he said he'd just leave in the garage for now. They thought I was folding. That I was giving up. But what I was really doing was finishing the last piece of a plan I'd started the second I opened that birthday folder. Every evening after work, I'd log into a separate account on my laptop and chip away at a project I called Final Cut, Fallon's Forever. The idea had come to me during coffee with Ivy, right after she mentioned the slideshow. Fallon wanted it sweet and nostalgic. Photos from the early days of dating, the proposal, family moments. Ivy mentioned I might be able to send a few pics. I did. But I also asked if I could help edit the slideshow. I told her I had a solid editing setup, a little experience, and that it might actually help take some stress off Fallon if someone in the family handled it. Ivy didn't hesitate, said that sounded great. So I got to work. The first part of the video was exactly what they expected. Fallon and Milo laughing at a picnic, hugging in matching flannel, the lakeside proposal. I used soft transitions, warm lighting filters and gentle music. Everything a wedding montage should be. Then came the shift. Quiet but sharp. It started with a photo of my front porch captioned, "The Future." Then a screenshot of part of the transition plan with Fallon's notes scribbled in the margins. One read, "Move my books here, I need to replace that hideous lamp." Then came audio, Fallon's voice recorded on my birthday, "You could stay with a friend for a while, or maybe that guy you play chess with at work." Followed by Milo's voice laughing, "We'll turn your office into a gaming room, it'll be awesome." The final image. My birthday cake. Still unlit. Caption, "Happy birthday, Ronan." It was only 20 seconds at the end. But that's all it needed to be. I didn't want to humiliate anyone, not fully. I didn't want to create a scene or ruin the wedding. But I did want the truth out in the open. I wanted people to see, not just the version of them they performed in public, but the people they really were when no one was watching. On the day of the wedding I dressed sharp. Not flashy. Just a crisp navy suit, clean white shirt and the watch my grandfather gave me when I finished college. I arrived early before most of the catering crew, and offered to help however I could. Ivy looked relieved to have someone reliable around. I set up chairs, adjusted tablecloths and helped string lights along the tent poles. As family started to show up I eased right back into the role I'd played for years. The easygoing big brother, the polite son, the guy who stayed out of the way. I hugged my aunts, shook hands with cousins I barely remembered, and nodded along through small talk about work, traffic and how stunning Fallon looked. She barely spoke to me. When she did, her words were short and formal. None of the sugar-coated tone she used for guests. She was too busy anyway. Posing with Milo for the photographer, giving notes to the flower girl, obsessing over every last detail like the whole thing was a royal event instead of a wedding. Milo hovered nearby, smiling when prompted, nodding along like a background actor. He looked exhausted. I'll admit the ceremony was beautiful. Fallon walked down the aisle on our mother's arm, glowing in a lace-detailed dress with her hair in styled waves. Courtesy of an out-of-town stylist, of course. Milo teared up as soon as he saw her. He stumbled a bit during his vows, which only made the guests swoon more. The crowd applauded when they kissed. Then came the reception. Round tables under a white tent, fairy lights, soft background music. People sipped punch, nibbled appetizers on little sticks. I sat with some cousins and old neighbors, laughed when expected, chewed slowly and waited. After dinner, once the plates were cleared and the cake was being rolled out, the lights dimmed. Ivy took the mic, smiling wide. "And now," she said, "a little walk down memory lane for our lovely couple." Applause filled the tent. The slideshow started. At first, everything went as expected. Baby photos of Fallon with skinned knees and pigtails. Milo covered in frosting as a toddler. Then pictures of them together. At the lake, bundled in scarves at a fall festival, laughing and hugging like a rom-com montage. Guests chuckled, clapped, sighed. The music swelled, soft, nostalgic. Then things shifted. The screen flashed a photo of my front porch, captioned, "The future." The laughter dipped. Next came a projected scan of a document, just long enough for people to catch the title. Transition Plan, Bedroom Reassignments. Fallon's handwriting stood out in the margins. "Move my books here. Replace that ugly lamp in the living room." A few confused whispers rippled through the room. Then audio started playing. Fallon's voice, "You could stay with a friend for a while, or maybe that guy you play chess with at work." Then Milo's, "We'll turn your office into a gaming room, it'll be sick." Silence. One last photo. My birthday cake, still in its box, candles unlit. Caption, "Happy birthday, Ronan." No music. Just silence. I was standing near the speakers. I saw everything, but more importantly I saw them. Fallon sat frozen, fists clenched in her lap. Milo held his glass so tight I thought it might shatter. My mom, Denise, blinked slowly like she couldn't quite process what she'd seen. Or maybe she was hoping she hadn't really seen it. Then the screen went black. Fallon bolted up and leaned toward Ivy, whispering something with bite. Ivy looked panicked, rushed to the projector, fumbling with the controls. Music came back on, too cheerful, too loud. She smiled like everything was fine. But it wasn't. The moment had passed, but the damage lingered. People noticed. The image Fallon had worked so hard to project, the perfect life, the polished smile, it had cracked. And what peeked through wasn't mystery or misunderstanding. It was arrogance. Entitlement. Self-interest. That would have been enough. But I wasn't finished. Because while they were busy staging the perfect takeover, posing for photos and planning where to put their furniture, I had been quietly doing something else. 2 months earlier I'd reached out to an attorney. Not to file a lawsuit. Not to threaten anyone. Just to confirm something I already suspected. The house I was living in, it had never belonged to my parents. Not even for a second. My grandfather left it entirely to me, sole ownership, no strings. The deed had my name on it and no one else's. I had the title updated, made everything official. And then I waited. Watched. Listened. The morning after the wedding, while the newlyweds were likely sleeping off their big celebration, I had the locks changed. That afternoon I dropped off 3 cleanly labeled envelopes. One for Fallon, one for Milo, one for Denise. Each one included a copy of the deed, a list of items in the house that weren't mine, and a short, polite message. "You have 30 days to remove your belongings. After that, they'll be donated." Fallon responded first. She messaged me saying she couldn't believe I'd do something like this right after her wedding. Said I was being petty. I didn't reply. Denise left me a voicemail, voice shaking. Said she was heartbroken and confused. I didn't call back. Milo? He never said a word. He just came by quietly a week later, packed a few boxes with a friend and left. No argument, no legal threats, no drama. Just silence. Fallon still tries to stir things up now and then. A few weeks later she posted one of those cryptic quotes. Something about jealousy wearing a smile and betrayal cutting deepest when it's from family. I didn't comment. I didn't even tap to read the full caption. I still have the birthday folder. Not because I need it anymore, but because it reminds me how far people will go to rewrite reality when they think you'll never stand up for yourself. It reminds me that peacekeeping isn't always peaceful, and that sometimes staying quiet just makes it easier for others to shove you around. I don't regret any of it. Now I live in my home. Quietly. Freely. And the space feels lighter.